Good evening. My name is Sandra Lopez and I'm a Public Information Officer with Southwest Area Team 3. And we have an update tonight from our Deputy Incident Commander Lance Elmore and our Operations Section Chief Trainee Brent Davidson. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Lance.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Lance Elmore, Deputy IC for Southwest Team 3. Just a little bit of update on the fire. The acres are at 2,599 acres, and we have 341 personnel assigned to the fire as of today. So a lot of things happened over the last few days. As everyone knows, the smoke kind of cleared out. Weather's changing a little bit, and that's kind of going to be the story for the next few days with the weather. I'll let Brent talk about the operational side of what's gone on the last few days, but do appreciate everyone being on here. I will just say, if you do have questions, go ahead and put them into the chat now, and we'll get to those there at the end when we start asking questions. So yeah, feel free to, whatever questions you may have, put them into chat, and thank you very much.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Brent Davidson, Operations Trainee here on the McCash fire. Get you up to speed with what's happening on the fire. I'll talk about the fire itself tonight. So the fire does continue to burn. It's moving primarily to the south and a little bit to the west along this area here, which kind of borders Cub Creek. Cub Creek just sits to the west of it, and just for reference, Yukon Creek is still along the northern boundary of the fire. So the fire does continue to progress to the south, a little bit to the west here in that area. That's the primary area of growth for right now with the main fire. It is still active along the southern edge. Not a whole lot of movement over as you move toward the east, and a little bit of activity over here on the far eastern side of the fire. It's just kind of it's backing, smoldering, and kind of moving around over in that area, but nothing of significance at this time. For right now, we have not seen any fire across Yukon Creek, and at this point, there's no significant fire that's gone across Cub Creek either. Some of the operations that have been happening over the last few days, we did prepped an indirect piece of line between the two fire scars, the Yukon fire from 2017 and the Hay Press fire. Crews began 2 days ago now with some burning operations, tying into that old fire scar here in the Hay Press. Working along their hand line and dozer line and some of the road systems progressing to the west. They've been successful in their burnout operations, and they're continuing those now, moving to the west throughout the night tonight. We do have a night shift working on the fire at this point as well, so they can continue burning and holding operations along the indirect line. The purpose of that is just to stay, ahead of the fire as it continues to progress to the south, and just conduct those burnout operations to keep it from going beyond our control features there. In addition to what's happening with a lot of that activity as close up to the fire, there's still some crews and some work and equipment working over here on this portion of the indirect line, continuing to prep, refine that line, and just be prepared in case they need to continue the burnout operations further to the west. As we look down to the southwestern portion of the fire area, over toward some of the communities here around T-Bar, Patterson Ranch, Marble Mountain Ranch, some of this stuff over here along the 96 corridor north of Orleans. There's a lot of structure protection activity that's going on there. They're using heavy equipment crews, some of the engine crews, hand crews, things like that. They're using a lot of the structure protection planning that they did in 2017 and prior to that, just to create some barriers, use some water handling equipment, things like that. Mastication along the roads to remove some of the fuels, just to protect that infrastructure and those values in case they're impacted by the fire. A lot of good things happening there. As we kind of come around up to the northern portion, there's old line that I've talked about before that was put in 2008 and 2017. They've worked at reopening a lot of this and prepping a lot of that. They're getting pretty close at this point, within about 3 miles of being all the way back to Highway 96 with the construction of that indirect line. At least with some of the dozers, and they'll follow that up with a lot of prep with some heavy equipment and crews, things like that. Continuing to look at options with some of the road systems and some of the other old lines they've used in the past that are a little bit closer to the fire area once they have this primary feature put into place. We haven't had any initial attacks, no new starts in the fire area, so we do have some resources identified in case there's something that starts new, but nothing yet. Today was the first day in about a week since we've been here that we had clear skies and we were able to fly some aviation assets. So we did have helicopters flying on the fire today, mostly providing bucket work and water support to the people on the ground, just keeping some of this in check as they continue to progress with their burnout operations. Able to get some people up for a reconnaissance flight to look at where the fire's at and get a really good eye of the movement and some of the fuels and things like that are out there. So that's the update for today, the latest and greatest out on the McCash fire. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Lance and Brent. And if you have any questions, please post those into the chat box. And we're gonna go ahead and start with a few questions that we did receive in advance of the meeting. So I'll go ahead and have Brent come back up to the map so he can answer some of these questions. So the first question is, are you trying to keep the fire from crossing Yukonom Creek or just letting the fire decide what's going to happen?
Yeah, great question there. Yes, we would like to keep the fire to the south of Yukonom Creek. There's a few barriers to being able to ensure that doesn't happen. The first one's been just the terrain that it's in and the safety of the firefighters. A lot of that terrain is very steep and very thick, and access to people on the ground is very difficult. So not able to actually put people down into this area just because of their safety and because of the terrain and the fire behavior and the fuels. The second thing with that is with the thick smoke that we've had lately, we haven't been able to fly any helicopters aviation. So not able to use some of that to help check this as it backs down toward Yukonom Creek. Today, like I mentioned, we were able to fly some helicopters. We did use some of the bucket work over here on the kind of the western portion of the fire, northwestern portion, just to try and help it stay on that side of the creek.
Great, thank you. The next question is, where are the helicopters dipping out of for water resources for the fire?
The primary source they've been using right now is Yukonom Lake. It's a pretty quick turnaround there, and it's got significant enough water for us to get the helicopters in and out of there safely, as well as Secret Lake. Those are the two places that we've been using for water support.
Great. Another question, what is going on with the fire lines being put in to stop the fire spreading into Secret Valley, Secret Lake area, as well as towards 1 Mile Lake? Or could you provide us an update of the fire closest to this area?
Sure. So right now, there's no direct suppression efforts going on the fire perimeter itself. Right now, like I've said before, with the fuels, terrain, access, the remoteness of the fire, and the safety of the firefighters in mind, there's no ground resources that are involved in direct suppression efforts, and we're speaking about the Secret Lake 1 Mile area over here. So at this point, this fire over here is being monitored, and we're focusing on stopping the progression, the way the fire wants to burn to the south, using this indirect feature here, and just keeping eyes on this and making sure it's not going to be a threat to the values that have been identified out in the private land like that, and a lot of actually good fire activity out there in the wilderness the way it's working.
Great, thank you. Is there any danger of the fire crossing into Del Norte Country or County?
Del Norte County. I'm not sure about that one. I'd have to get back and reply to that one.
Great, okay. We will follow up on that. Is the main portion of the fire heading out toward the Marble Mountains?
Marble Mountains. The wilderness. So, not to be a broken record, but kind of two different areas of the fire that are really active. It's along the western edge, north and south here. It's wanting to burn to the south over here and a little bit to the west. Out in the wilderness, it's still active, like I mentioned before. It is still burning out in the Marble Mountain Wilderness. Not as significant growth over here in the wilderness as it has been over here outside of the wilderness area. So.
And another question is, where is this fire? There are so many fires occurring. I'm not sure where this fire is located.
Okay. Yeah, for reference, it's about, it's 15 miles or so from Orleans, which is south of the fire area, southwest. And then Happy Camp is north of the fire. It's about an hour north of the fire. So, it would be east of the Highway 96 corridor. That gives a rough idea of where it's at. Right on the edge of the Marble Mountain Wilderness.
Great, thank you, Brent. Appreciate all of that information. And those are all of the questions that we currently have in the chat. We'll give it a few more moments to see if we get any other questions. If you have any questions, please post those into the chat box, and we have a few public information officers that are watching the chat box. And as a reminder, we continue to post InstaWeb, and we also continue to post information on the Facebook page about the McCash fire. Any latest information we post on those two sites. We also have a fire information staff that answers questions throughout the day into the evening, and we also post pictures and maps and updates. And we'll give it a few more moments to see if there's any additional questions that you have for us. This is the opportunity to speak with the individuals who are managing the fire and are able to tell you where the resources are and how we are using them to the best of our ability, while ensuring that we provide safety, number one, for our firefighters, and also safety for the public as well. And I do want to remind folks that when we use aerial resources, if you fly, we can't, so please help us spread the message that drones are never allowed within a fire area. If we do spot a drone, we do have to stand down all of our air resources, and this is to ensure that all of our firefighters are safe, whether our firefighters are in the air or on the ground. Okay, so it does not look like we have any other questions in the chat. I want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll continue to provide fire updates about the McCash fire on InstaWeb and on the Facebook site. So there is one more question that did come in. Which fire camp are they using for this fire? Is it located in Orleans or Happy Camp? And I'll have Brent answer that.
The ICP Incident Command Post for the fire is in Orleans. In addition to that, we do have a number, so the main fire camp is in Orleans. We have a couple of forward operating bases, or spike camps we call them, and we just started one today in Happy Camp. So some of our resources that are up in the northern part of the fire, they're camping in Happy Camp. We have some other resources that are actually camping up closer to the fire. It just reduces travel time and exposure for our firefighters, so we support them where they're closer to their work. We don't have to drive the roads, when they're tired, fatigued, things like that. So both of them is the answer.
Great, thank you, Brent. And thank you for asking that last question, and we're gonna go ahead and close out our meeting this evening. Thank you very much.